There you are, my ward. Apologies for my sudden intrusion into your domicile, but as you can see, I'm in a rather desperate situation at the moment. I seem to have several golf ball-sized holes throughout my body, and so I need but a moment of rest. My worst fears have been actualized, it seems, for one of my meetings was interrupted by a strike team from the Second Inquisition. I'm the lucky one, believe it or not. The one I was there to see, the only active kindred I know to be older than myself, is the Tremere Lady Delilah, and I believe she has met her final death. At least it seemed that way. I did not see her drop, so to speak, but she was in a room that exploded. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Do not worry, my ward. I know we are in fact safe, and I wasn't followed, as I managed to kill them all. I was informed that a small group of them were here, and that they were doing some form of reconnaissance, but I didn't think for a moment they would actually attack me. And if they have done so, it must mean that there are more of them somewhere nearby. So, while we have this moment of relative safety, I should probably educate you on everything you need to know about them, for it is quite likely you shall be seeing some in the near future, at least until I've fully sorted this situation out. And as always, if you are going to fully understand the group, you would do well to start with their history, for it shapes the world that they believe is theirs. You see, we are actually responsible for the creation of the First Inquisition. Us kindred, that is. For back in the days of yore, when we ruled openly as the creatures we are, we used the mortals for every want we had, as servants and as soldiers. Over time, we started teaching the mortals how to kill our rival kindred, what the weakness of our kind is, and how to exploit them. The problem is that some of us got lazy and stopped ghouling those who they sent to do this. Those bloody fools actually started to trust them. So of course, the obvious happened. They started talking to each other and questioned that if they can kill our kind, then why should they serve them? So they turned on their masters and rounded us up like animals. So many of our kind had perished during what we now call the Dark Ages. It took us a while to get back control, and when we did, we scrubbed all records of those events, hence why they are now called the Dark Ages, for almost everything in history during those times involved us. We held the Convention of Thorns, where most of us decided that we shall rule from the shadows in order to stop this from happening again. The Sabbat, of course, opposed this with blind vanity and pride, but even they started to hide when they realized this was true. The Anarchs, on the other hand, cannot put down their phones and stop using social media for one moment, and so they're throwing away our wisdom. This has, of course, caused the same problem again, for we are being hunted anew as a Second Inquisition has emerged. I should also specify the difference between something too, for witch hunters are a common nuisance of our kind we've always had to deal with, but the Second Inquisition is a whole different organized threat. I'll go over the witch hunters first, for they are probably more common overall. See, a witch hunter is quite simply just a person who has dedicated their life to hunting supernatural creatures, especially the likes of us. However, their skill and actual knowledge is often spotty at best. In fact, with every witch hunter I know of, they often get more things wrong than right, spouting all sorts of nonsense, like us being weak to garlic, or can't enter a building without permission, or even that we're all descended from a single vampire called Carmilla, hence why our faction is called the Camarilla. That one's actually quite funny, I'll give them that. They could really be anyone, be it trained ex-military soldier who's out for revenge as something otherworldly killed their loved one, or a crazy homeless conspiracy theorist who thinks that we are servants of the alien lizard king Zangulafar, preparing for an invasion of their planet. But whatever nonsense they believe, you have to remember that they are still a threat. They, in their dedication to their task, think of little other than destroying us. And as time has proven again and again, human ingenuity, determination, and skill has seen some hunters live so much longer than they should have, and taken on some powerful creatures and survived. And this is not to mention their potential to counter us perfectly, with true faith. This power is something we really have no true opposition to, and is partly responsible for us going underground in the first place. True faith is in essence a form of magic that mortals who truly believe in something, regardless of their religion they hold true, be it an Abrahamic faith or some branch of paganism, it will give them the strength to overcome what they view as darkness. What causes this to work in some and not others is unknown, and it is an exceptionally rare trait, but one that tends to emerge in the people you really don't want it to, the ones that would cause quite the problem. And what they can do with it is quite terrifying. For simple things like resisting our powers to forcing us to stop in place or even flee. They can cure a ghoul, making them mortal again in a moment, empower items of their faith, and even cause immense pain to us, as if a ray of sunlight caressed our skin. But remember, what they believe in does not in any way need to be true, they just need to hold it dearly. For a good example of this, the last time I met a witch hunter who was actually a threat to me, they were wielding what they thought was a holy artifact. This pagan thought he had the hammer of his god, known as Mjolnir. In truth, it was a regular bull-peen hammer, but I saw the crackle in it, and recognized that he had true faith. The Nosferatu I was with at the time, however, did not. So, when she laughed at him, thinking this would be over in moments, the hunter cracked her head open at blinding speed, shattering chunks of her skull in moments, turning her to dust. In a way, she was right, it was over quite quickly. I didn't actually kill that hunter, by the way. We both got attacked by a different monster, and he got away, but I think I managed to scare him quite enough to know that I won't be seeing him anytime soon. But let me get back on topic to the main problem we face now, the actual Second Inquisition. See, if independent madmen are capable of such damage, what do you think whole groups of organized professionals with government levels of funding is capable of? Well, you end up with the biggest problem we kindred face in the modern era, and it's almost entirely caused by people not listening to us at the Camarilla. So, let me get started with the fact that they have their own terms for everything. They don't call us vampires, for example, but instead blank bodies. And if you hear anyone use that term, you know to be on guard. I should also make it clear that the Second Inquisition is not one group or organization, but a coalition of different powerful groups, all working together for the most part. Some kindred will deny this is true, and say it is just one failing organization, that we don't need to worry about them. They are fools and to be ignored. I mean this with all of my heart when I tell you that this group is bringing us closer to our extinction than any mythical apocalypse, and if we don't start treating them as the threat they are, we will not survive. If we don't shadow our pride, we will not live. For I have seen this play out before, except this time they have technology I could not conceive of back then. And I won't lose everything. I won't lose everyone. Not again. Sorry. Let me get back on topic. How far these groups stretch is actually quite shocking. There is not a single government on Earth that does not aid them in some way. This is a problem, as we in the Camarilla used to be one of the supernatural groups that controlled the world's governments. The other is a group of mages called the Technocracy, and a corporation known as the Pentex Group. Although they're more like a cult than a real corporation, but that's a story for another night. Regardless, we are being pushed out and losing more and more sway in important decisions, which is a problem. And since this has been happening slowly, I seem to be the only one pointing out how much worse things are getting. But instead, we have the religious squabbles with the Sabbat and the pleading talks of inequality from the Anarchs. and Kindred keep talking as if these are our biggest problems. Politics of the modern era are starting to bore me so. Let me get into some of the groups within the Second Inquisition, and while there are many of them, there are 3 major ones I wish to discuss. The first is a religious organization started by the Holy See of the bloody Pope himself. They simply call themselves the Entity, a collection of holy militia teams that go from city to city taking out what they believe are the biggest threats. They are the ones responsible for the destruction of the Tremere's Vienna Chantry, or the main one as they see it, causing irreparable damage to the clan that they still have yet to fully recover from. They are in many ways the current founders of the Second Inquisition as we know them, and incorporated many groups into themselves that have been around since the first one. The Society of Saint Leopold being a famous group that has killed many kindred through its long existence. The Entity as a whole acts a lot more methodical than the other groups, taking their slow time in dealing with a problem, but they finish it when they do so. When the Entity emerge onto a city, they will wipe out every single supernatural presence they can find, with even the most hidden and resilient of our kind being destroyed in their raids. They also created the chemical weapon that we kindred call the Red Gas. They know it as the Velum Sanctari, or the Holy Veil. This gas burns us akin to sunlight, but more in a blistering illness. It's probably the closest thing we will experience to a disease ever again, except it's immediately in the later stages that can kill us. The next group I wish to speak of is from my home of England, the Newborough Group, a very modern Inquisition that acts more like informants and dealers for other smaller ones, that I will not be discussing, for in truth they use them for puppets anyway. The worst part about this group is its origin and creation was totally preventable, and caused by one man. Fucking Mithras. The bastard, stripped of his old body and seeking power again, gave an ungodly amount of evidence of our kind to informants in the British government, in hopes to use them in the exact same way we did during the Dark Ages, learning nothing from his excessive age and creating what they called the Newborough League, forming the group that then destroyed London. The fall of London, where every kindred within was killed or forced to flee, is all his fault. And if rumour has it, he died there, which I pray is true, and if it is not, I get to kill him myself. But, as I was saying, the group mostly informs and supplies other teams. The task force that actually carried out the fall was not them, but acting entirely on their intel and advice. Like the head of a snake, however, this group is what I believe the threat to truly be, and if we destroy them, the task forces will fall shortly after, due to failure of proper leadership. They also supply both those under them and other nations' Inquisition groups with supernatural items of curiosity. When task forces ghoul themselves for an operation, they most likely got that blood from the Newborough group, as well as items made by mages and fey charms or whatever else they can get their hands on. And lastly, let me speak of the branch of the American government, the agency known as First Light. And they are by far the most technologically advanced group yet, using more so modern science, understanding, and an absolute mountain of money to deal with their supernatural problem. This is the group that took down the ShrekNet, or the Nosferatu's online kindred network, back in the early 2000s. When any branch of the American law enforcement or government agent encounters something they believe to be supernatural, an investigator from First Light is called in to confirm if it is or not. And if they believe it is, they will call in what they think is needed with no upper budget for this. I've seen them call in a group of super light, state-of-the-art tanks in order to deal with a pack of lupines. And you may laugh at that, for the fight was quite unfair. for the tanks, that is, as the Lupines shredded them apart in moments. First Light won in the end, of course, because they bombed the part of the wilds they were in and blamed it on wildfires, called it a job done, and celebrated, ignoring the casualties they caused, of course. But if you have the resources to throw at a problem till it disappears, I suppose that would always work. Out of all of the groups, they are the fastest, making sure to strike first and strike hard, and leave their foes no time to comprehend their assault. These are not the only groups out there, of course. Every nation on Earth has recently developed their own Inquisition problem. Russia, Brazil, Egypt, France, Poland, Japan, and Sweden all have major groups like them. And this is not to mention the minor ones that work under them and the independent ones that work where they are needed. This threat is really something we cannot ignore. Luckily, it's all things I've seen before, just more advanced, and so I know how to deal with them when they emerge. With all that being said, I hope you are at least aware of the threat that is in front of you. But I must now be off my ward. Your hospitality was lovely, but my wounds have started to heal enough for my liking, and so I shall be off. I need to learn which group has struck and what they were after. Do take care of yourself now, and do not fail to call if there is something you need, especially in moments like these. I am going to do all in my power, however, to stop this before it gets too far. Thank you for listening to my tales. I'm the Ashspawn. Feel free to leave a like, comment, or subscribe. It really does mean a lot to me. But, till next we meet, fellow traveller, have a good night.